You said it is not okay for Israel to attack civilians, attack civilian infrastructure, to threaten to starve the people of Gaza. It most certainly isn't okay. It's a war crime. The Israeli government have brazenly, publicly and openly declared their intention to commit a war crime and have commenced that war crime against the people of Gaza, saying that they intend to starve of food, electricity, water, 2.2 million people. That is a war crime under the 4th Geneva Convention. They are raining down thousands of the most sophisticated missiles known to humanity onto the most densely populated area in the world, carrying the certainty that almost every missile will incur civilian casualties, will and are destroying the infrastructure, the water infrastructure, the energy, making Gaza uninhabitable. And using, in very credible reports, as they did in the past, chemical weapons, white phosphorus, being used by Israel. And you try to suggest there is some symmetry, some equivalence between the actions of Hamas and what Israel has been doing to the Palestinians for decades. Will you admit that the terrible loss of life and escalation of violence that we have seen in the last few days is simply a continuation of the crimes against humanity, the war crimes of the state of Israel against the people of Palestine? And it's not me saying this. You have, or you should have read, the reports of Amnesty International, which we asked you to read and act on Human Rights Watch, on the UN Special Rapporteur to Palestine, on the UN Human Rights Council, on the issue of Palestine. Do you know that the Israeli state will not even allow the UN Rapporteur on Palestine into the occupied territories, or the UN Human Rights Council in, because they know that they will bear witness to the ongoing ethnic cleansing, the ongoing illegal annexation of territory, the ongoing arbitrary detention of Palestinians without trial, the impunity when they assassinate a journalist like Shireen Abu Akleh. No justice, no sanctions. What do we actually get? The head of the most powerful state in the world, while Israel is threatening to commit war crimes against Israel, says we're going to give them more weapons and arms. We support them absolutely. So will you admit that the ultimate responsibility for the terrible, and every single loss of life is terrible, but is the failure of the United States, of the European Union, of the Western powers to hold to account Israel for ongoing, decades-long ethnic cleansing, war crimes, crimes against humanity, the denial of the most basic rights to the Palestinian people? As Gideon Levy said, Israel, a Jewish Israeli columnist, said yesterday, Israel can't imprison 2 million Gazans without paying a cruel price. Isn't that the truth?
Deputy, please.
Deputy, I believe Israel has the right to exist. Israel was established by the United Nations, was established in accordance with international law, and Israel has the right to exist. I hope you'll agree, and I hope you'll say that in your follow-up response. And as any sovereign state has the right to defend itself when it's under attack. And I can understand why Israel needs to take action to root out terrorists and people who fire rockets at civilians into Israel. Israel is absolutely within its rights to defend itself and to go after Hamas. That does not extend to cutting off electricity to civilian populations. It does not extend to cutting off water. It does not extend to preventing food from entering the Gaza Strip. And we're very clear on that in terms of the position of the Irish government. Basic principles of human rights must apply, and they apply to Israel too. But Deputy, I am, and I know your support for Palestine is sincere, but I am a little bit disappointed that you haven't said anything about Hamas or Hezbollah or any of their actions in your remarks. In fairness to Deputy MacDonald, she did, as did Deputy Batchik, and I would like to give you this opportunity to add to what you said earlier, not to take any of it back, but just to add to what you said earlier by saying that you accept that Israel has the right to exist, that has a right to sovereignty and statehood and security, and that you agree that the actions of Hamas and Hezbollah for decades, targeting Israeli civilians, kidnapping Israelis and others, that those actions are wrong, have contributed to the conflict and have made it harder to find a solution.
I want to see an end to all killing, all violence, all death, and the release of all prisoners and hostages. But, you see, the problem here is that I do not believe that an apartheid regime has the right to exist anywhere. I do not believe that a regime that engages in ongoing, daily, weekly, monthly, ethnic cleansing of another group of people based on their race or ethnicity, which is what Israel is doing, has the right to perpetrate those crimes. These are crimes against humanity. This is a regime for decades has denied UN resolutions calling for the right of Palestinians, millions of them, ethnically cleansed since 1948, living in refugee camps in Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, cast to the winds of the world, denied statehood, denied identity, denied history, and they have the right to return, but Israel shoots them down if they try and assert that right, as happened in the Great March of Return. Let's remember that. Peaceful demonstrations in 2018 by the people of Gaza, attempting to assert their right to return, shot down. The UN at the time called for investigations on that episode for war crimes and crimes against humanity. Will you call for sanctions against the apartheid regime of Israel? Will you call for the European Union and the United States to stop arming that regime to commit war crimes and crimes against humanity? Of course you won't. Of course you won't.
Thanks, Deputy.